Welcome to Holdback Podcast. My name is Jessica Hare. I operate Hare Hollow Farm, and we breed boas, balls, and select colubrids.
Hi, I'm Jana King. I operate ASM Royal Tails, and I breed high-end ball pythons.
We want to share our journey navigating herpetoculture and are dedicated to promoting biohazard safety for all species. And we would love you to answer the question, what's in your holdback rack? Welcome to episode 5.
We made it to episode 5.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow, big 5. I think actually episode 8 is a bigger deal from what I read.
Pod fade obviously is a real thing because there's an internet full of podcasts that have stopped at some point.
I read 7 was average.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I think Corn on the Pod, which was the only all cornsnake one, stopped at 7, so that's a good number. A good round number. We'll have to shoot for that one.
I was going to say, get the blow past that.
I think we're...
No mercy to
This
10.
is like very meta discussion, but I think because we intentionally choose not to bring on guests, we're not going to have like the guest hustle fatigue. We already have our like recording fatigue, but we also would have like trying to find a guest, trying to pick a time, trying to deal with their schedule,
Hustle,
and then people blow you off over and over and over again.
Pimp and pulling favors and trade cards.
Yeah, and asking people to give like advice for who would actually be good and is good at talking or like pulling stories out of. Because I've definitely heard podcasts where people are like one question and then they get one, even so much as monosyllabic responses. And
For every question.
For every question. And the person's like, fuck, please, Jesus. I need to find like a nugget in this man. It's usually a man, let me be honest. The word that I could mine for any sort of content. And those are the struggler episodes that we don't have to worry about.
To kill your soul.
Yeah.
You stop at 7.
And then part of the benefit of not doing it live is nobody expects us to be somewhere at a particular time. So we're also not like unable to manage it within our schedules, whatever way it works out.
Right.
We'll see what happens though.
I'm shooting for 8.
8.
Gotta have 8.
That's our
Although
next goal.
Like 20 plus, but 8 after 5. 8 is my goal.
If we can do half a year, that'd be pretty good. That'd be better than most reptile
Yeah, I'd be
podcasts.
pretty happy with that. There was a post on Facebook that was recommended to me because apparently I dig snake stuff, where this woman was basically attacked and made to feel pretty worthless. It was a pretty sad post, and it kind of like was painful to read, and I just wanted to hug her and tell her to ignore the haters. And up until that point, I hadn't been a follower. I was unaware of her media presence.
Who are you talking about?
I'm talking about Sarah with Sarah's Snakes.
Sarah's Snake Shop. Sarah Mohr.
Sarah Mohr. And she has 2 books out for the average everyday corn snake owner. Like even kids can read it. It's very user friendly. And she received some pretty awful emails basically tearing her down and telling her that she was a detriment to the hobby and that she should no longer contribute to the hobby in any way. She has a Facebook presence, a YouTube channel, and like I said, she has 2 books that she's published. Did you want to go from there?
Sure. Sarah Mohr's book came out in 2017. You would know. 2018, maybe 4 years ago, like a long time ago. So the context is Sarah Mohr was like a very busy little bee on the cornsnake Facebook communities and like before that the cornsnake forums. So she wrote her like cornsnake, and she's the moderator now of a cornsnake morph ID Facebook group that's very large. So she's always been someone who was like trusted sort of within the hobby as like a hobby ID person. Pretty good at IDs, knows a lot of the stories. But she admitted that she had developed the material for the book from primarily old cornsnake.com forum posts. She did corroborate that as best she could with the people she knew and could message and find, but old cornsnake farts are from like the 70s and 80s, and they don't even have an email, maybe dial-up. if we're lucky. So I can completely understand how A, she couldn't track down all of them to double check the forum stories, and B, she couldn't necessarily get 100% accurate information. But to the best of her ability, she compiled the morph history for all of the base morphs into 2 books, and then she self-published them in small runs to share with someone who's new instead of typing it on the internet over and over again. I honestly considered doing that too, but for like boas. Even though... So in this case, Van Russo has a boa book that goes through all of the localities and certain morphs of boas, and it's actually published by a real publisher. But it's another one of the things where it's $70. So how many people are going to pick up a $70 morph book instead of like a price point that's is more entry level for the first time? So that's what she's doing. There are obviously other cornsnake books. Kathy Love has a cornsnake book. Don Soderbergh has a cornsnake book. Some other people. And those include a morph section also. They're just very old and out of print at this point. So they're cheaper, but they're 20 years old or older. So do they include modern morphs or that have been found since then? No. So that's my knowledge of her as a backstory. She's gone through her own stuff and it doesn't have that many snakes, so it doesn't matter really what she says. She just has reduced her collection and then decided very recently to start putting this content on YouTube, within the last year and a half. So I think that's where things start to get weird, why this all started to happen, because now more people can easily see the content she compiled and see the real or imagined errors in it. When she made the book 4 years ago, none of these people read it, right?
Rude.
So they didn't care. So the person she got it wasn't even just passive aggressive, it was all the way aggressive email from.
All the way aggressive. So mean.
Yeah.
Internet bullies.
The hardest part is
warriors.
It was littered with not just attacks of the criticisms of her work, but criticisms of her.
Yeah.
And they were not friends, but obviously they'd bought snakes from each other or done deals. And so I don't know how it escalated
they
that
were
quickly.
Professionally friends.
Yeah, so snake acquaintances or whatever.
Right.
So I don't know why he was man, I should definitely double down on making someone feel bad about themselves.
Their life's work. My understanding was that she had listed a bunch of stuff to downsize her collection because she was getting married or her goals were
No,
changing.
Sorry, let me fix you. She already had downsized years ago, a long time ago. And then when she got out of Golden, she sold it to Travis, but this was 2 or 3 years ago. This all happened. She'd only gotten down to her pets and her 8 breeder adults a long time ago. This had already happened. Is that what you're thinking?
No, I thought she had said that she had a group for sale for a really low price and they were offended by that. Right.
So she kept let's go back in time, everybody.
Sorry.
Let's go way back. So the Goldens, it doesn't matter who found them or who bred them, because that's not germane to the discussion. It's just she ended up with a colony of known het Goldens, and she bred them and made pos het offspring from the father, right? And so she knew that she didn't think she had the mental wherewithal and facilities to run a new recessive cornsnake morph and tease it away from Caramel. So she sold it, the 100% het male and a number of 50% het offspring. Some of them were female, not all of them though, to Travis Whistler. This is a famous fact. I think that happened in 2019. She'd already been downsizing a lot. She just got rid of her biggest project. She kept 2 of the possible hets from her own clutch and then bred them this year and was going to sell the pos hets as pos hets.
Okay.
So she doesn't even know if they're hets, but she was just if I do release them, they will be technically possible carriers of this new gene. So they'll be more expensive, but not so expensive that it matters.
Okay.
It's weird that it started with a criticism of her YouTube videos, then a criticism of everything, her book, and then a criticism of everything she's ever said, and then a criticism of how she's like running her portion of the Golden project, because they didn't like the price that she had set for the possible het Goldens. I'm assuming what they actually wanted her to do was wholesale it as a normal instead of sort of confuse the market price. Like it should be very expensive or no dollars, like hidden in a pet home to like hide the project.
So they weren't happy with her pricing of her pos sets.
Right. And so they accused her of sort of setting the market price, and then both told her not to, that they were asking her to price fix, but then basically asked her to price fix at the exact same time, which then like that opens up another can of worms, because there's a certain amount of like collusion that I think is very normal between large breeders. But I don't know if her 5 posses changes the price breakdown. To me, I don't know. What do you think about that one?
I don't think she's affecting that project at all, nor is she working that project. It was more like she had normal corn snakes that she was being honest about their lineage. It was more genealogical than selling something that someone's going to buy into, or someone who was watching her for that project. I agree with her that she is not affecting the market for that project in any way with pos heads.
Yeah, I don't think she is either. She was sort of self-promoting the project as a golden project, though.
Oh, she was?
Yeah, like these are my pos golden babies. I'm excited about what Travis is doing. I'd love to buy a visual from Travis to breed back to my both pos females from the first generation and the pos from the second generation to check officially who was a het or not a het. She's publicly definitely said that before.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. It doesn't matter. The hard part is like there's a double standard. They could buy it from her really cheap and be happy with that price, but can't be happy if she prices her pots too cheap for them or their taste. So it wasn't
they bought it from her cheap, and they really want it to be a high end.
Right. So why did they buy it from her cheap if it was worth it so much to them?
So what you're saying is it was hypocritical.
Absolutely.
Double standard. You bought it cheap from me, and you don't want me to continue to sell it cheap because you want to be able to throw it into the market as something really expensive.
Right, without then kicking back to her because she kept the project alive. If she hadn't taken it, like the project was been wrought with problems. Like the original one was bred to something, and they were trying to check and see if it was caramel, and it was not. So now we have double het for a yellow thing. So now we have to tease about all Goldens from all caramels. It's going to be a nightmare. And then a bunch of clutches died, and then breeders died, and then all we had were hets. That's why there's no visuals anymore until they were recently produced. So like the project was passed off. It's like the cornsnake morph that never could get off the ground properly. So she just got it because she was into corn snakes and she genuinely liked the morph. And so they took it from her at a low value and are trying to sort of polish a turd to pretend like it's a hot new thing.
Oh, this really hot take.
Yeah, it's still just another yellow corn snake.
Everyone wants.
It's crazy to me, though, is I bought from a person whose name rhymes with Ron Doderberg. And the second person, I guess it's not as obvious who that one is, but it's definitely Travis Whistler. Or his name rhymes with Travis Missler. Not that he cares. And there were some other people, like Roy Pierce, who
better watch out. They're gonna gun for you next after they listen to
your fucking shrill women screaming. So I don't know if you knew this, but Don Soderbergh kind of retired, sold most of his colonies to Travis. So Travis's collection is basically Don's old collection plus whatever Travis already had before that. So Don is like basically retired, even though he sells a little bit.
How he had all this time on his hand to gather.
That's what I'm saying. So like he couldn't talk to her 4 years ago when she first sent him the first draft or the first printing, and he could have like corrected it then. It's only now that he's like semi-retired and he gets on YouTube, and maybe people were sending him messages complaining about like certain parts not being accurate and could he step in, that he like got all fired up and then wrote like a bunch of mean emails that ended up like cutting her out of the Golden Project in the end. It's so strange. I'm just like, what is going on? What is going on? Like, if he wanted to, in his retirement, like, be the champion for, like, knowledge of cornsnake morphs, he had time to do that. But she was the one who did that. And even if it's not perfect, I think it's still way better than no cornsnake presence at all on YouTube. Because guess
Absolutely.
what, bitches? YouTube is the #2 search engine. People want to know something half the time they type it into YouTube.
That's where I search instead of Google.
Right. People are like, "What? How do I do whatever? Why is my cornsnake purple?" Google it. Or YouTube it. She's doing the entire...
Jeeves is now Ask YouTube.
Yeah, the entire cornsnake hobby needs her to not have a bunch of snakes so she has time to do YouTube videos, basically. Because it's good for the cornsnake hobby. Even if she has one or two factual sort of errors, which...
inaccuracies, which is normal.
Who cares?
Human.
Half of what I say is wrong at this point.
Human.
Yeah. A lot of this triggers me a little bit because I feel, there's a lot of mansplaining here. There's no way she could have it accurate because X, Y, and Z reasons, mostly vagina-based. 2, B, I don't know what we're on, what ordinal system we're on. She's trying to speak from a position of authority, even if she maybe isn't the most authoritative at that person, because she didn't do any of those things personally like Dawn did or someone else. She just read about them. So like that's like triggering him, and now he's losing his mind on her. But I think it's, in the modern age, the person who wants to sit in front of the YouTube channel is the person... She's taking the brave step of putting herself out there, and maybe she needs to be like more desensitized to criticism because she's putting herself out there. But I don't know if Dawn had to like be like, fuck you, your corn stuff's shitty right away.
Point by point, I'm going to attack everything you've done for the last 10 years.
And demoralize her so bad she basically tried to quit. Okay, great hobby move, bud. Why would anybody want to buy from you now, by the way? I don't care how nice your snakes are.
It's so sad, because if he is retired and he does have all this time on his hands, he shouldn't be, like, harshing and fact-checking other people. Why doesn't he sit his butt down in front of a YouTube camera? And if he thinks it's that inaccurate,
he's probably working on a new edition of his book. That's my current theory. He doesn't want to help her with her book because he knows he needs to make his own second edition of his book.
He doesn't have to help her. He doesn't have to interact with her on any level. But freaking using up your time to fact check her and attack her, use up your time and do something better.
Right.
And just put it out
he
there.
could do his own YouTube videos. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like literally by himself explain.
In the snakes, sell your experience on YouTube. Don't attack somebody who's filling a needed spot in the community that you're trying to help build, not tear down. I don't know. It was really sad for me because I completely believe her. I completely believe that that's something that happens in the hobby. I hear about it, and whether it's gender based, sure, I think that's valid. But also, I think it's happening. And is it the old school people getting pissed off at the new kids on the block? She's been around for 10 years. Does that not count for something?
No.
And she's been trying to contribute. But she's trying to contribute.
Yeah, I don't know. That's the hard part also, is like the old time corn snake people who are really into it are predominantly male, predominantly white, and predominantly old as fuck. New corn snake people, like not young people, just anyone newer than 58 is predominantly female and all, or cisgendered or transgendered or whatever, like, because a corn snake is a pet you can get relatively easily, so it's like anybody can get it, and they're not necessarily that white either. Seeing a different voice in a position of authority about corn snakes is probably fine.
Totally fine.
In fact, it's not fine, it's great. Good job.
Yeah, I think she should just maybe take a little break, work on herself, get herself built back up, get her shield on, whatever her armor, and I think that she should come back. I don't think she should I don't care who he is. I don't care how much he's contributed. There's no reason she can't also contribute because you know what? At some point in his life, he was only 10 years into his experience with corn snakes.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that you can't contribute in a positive way.
Right. I don't know what he even thinks he wants, honestly. Like, heard just no one talk about anything unless it's triple checked through the filter of himself. I'm not even sure. Like,
it's like
obviously,
all like a fluid informational state, and like she said, a lot of her stuff came from forums. Like that's totally snake
right.
based information sharing is forums and Facebook groups, and that's where the community is. So, I mean, I'm not active in corn snake communities. Is he giving a rebuttal of any kind?
No, I even asked on the Discord this morning. I was like, has anyone seen a official statement from Dawn about the situation that was either up and deleted or whatever? There's nothing more than the one message that was deleted from her YouTube channel that she posts for a second because somebody sent her a screenshot of it.
What was that? I missed that because it was deleted by the time I got to it.
Right. Well, she like posts it on the YouTube video, on the follow-up YouTube video.
Okay.
Okay. And that it basically says like, I never told you to quit. I just thought you needed to do better. Basically, that was his apology. It wasn't like
an apology. That's like
it wasn't like
put on your big girl
sorry.
panties,
this like hit in a hard way. I can
I
see
get
you're
to
in pain.
vomit ugliness at you. Like,
it's so funny.
suck it up.
It's not
that's
funny.
Such a white man apology. Like entitled white men. I know I'm an entitled white woman, but
it just went crazy. That's how he responded to her pain or whatever. Was not first, I'm sorry this got out of hand or whatever, but I really think you have some critical errors and we can figure it out. It was definitely, you can keep doing it if you want. Just don't be wrong about it. Try to be more accurate. Meh.
oh my gosh.
Fuck that dude.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Like, I don't know what, obviously someone's going to listen to us one day, and I feel the same feeling where, like, if anybody ever starts listening to this podcast, they're going to be like, fuck those
You could totally
people.
make a list of what
They
they're
have
doing
no
wrong.
idea what they're talking about, and you're probably right, but that doesn't matter.
Totally right.
Because it's more about the conversation and, like, getting better through time in our
Right.
collection.
This is where I'm at in my journey, which is years behind where you're at, which may be years behind where someone else is at. Like,
Exactly.
that doesn't mean that I'm not allowed to speak or allowed to show up to the party because I only
Go
have
back to the
18
kitchen,
months to do
Jana.
it. Yeah, geez.
I need a
barefoot
meatloaf.
Pregnant, shut the hell up. Like, no, that doesn't
That's
have
so
to
crazy.
happen. Just
What?
because I don't know everything or I know very little about everything in the hobby that I'm choosing to be in does not mean that I am not allowed to show up and contribute to the hobby.
Also, Don doesn't hang out in any of the Cornsnake Facebook groups. He has his own Facebook group that he sort of polices for Don-only content. You know how those sort of Facebook groups are.
Oh, man.
So it's like his business name's Snake of the Day picture. And so he puts up a picture
think,
day.
like he's like the JKR of cornsnake?
Yes. And maybe he is, but does it matter if you are that mean to some people? Is he this mean in
No.
private? What's going on? And he's retired. So, like, is he now the JKR of corn snakes? He found the palmetto. Did you know that?
I did know that, and that's what it's so disappointing because that's the morph I'm interested in, and this whole situation has just kind of made me go, ooh.
So he price fixed
Cornsnake.
and gender fixed the release of the palmetto. Did you know that?
I did know that.
Yeah,
We
so-
had a conversation about this guy before I knew that's who we were talking
So
about.
that's
But yeah, I
fine.
looked into it.
I still think it's fine, but like if they believed in the project so strongly, they should have paid her more money for the golden, or been like, give me $1,000 now, but I'll give you a visual mail because you still have half the project or whatever. Maybe she was hoping for that, or at least the ability to buy it back, but not anymore. They think she's going to ruin the market or something stupid. That's why I never release any of your dinkers ever, under any circumstance.
No, you don't release snakes ever. She's
Never
not in
sell
the-
snakes
in
at
the
any
hobby
time.
of selling snakes. She's in the hobby of making and collecting snakes.
I need more snakes as soon as possible. Stat.
No, I totally get it.
Like,
When she
imagine
let
if
it
she had
go,
had,
it's
like,
gone.
whatever, the mental space to be able to run the Golden Project. She could have
Maybe.
technically been had some financial boon from that, but she chose to downsize at that time, like the original colonies, because of mental health stuff. So, like, we're also preying on, like, a person with mental health challenges
Yeah,
who was,
who's
like,
not in a
being
great space. Let's just make her feel like she's a piece of worthless
right,
shit.
and take her best project that was her favorite. Great. Sounds great.
And then cut her out of it
Yeah,
for
fuck.
any future. Like, who cares if you get better?
Oh, God.
Thanks for the deal. F
It,
you. In
yeah.
fact, take yourself out of the hobby completely
Yeah,
and
fuck
don't
off.
speak about it. Oh, and take your books. Don't sell those either because I have a book too, and you're hurting my sales.
Yeah, it's very weird.
There's got to be a missing piece. I'm not saying that I believe her, and I'm glad that she's telling her story, but there's got to be one more piece of information that we're not getting.
Right. She did read the emails
I watched
verbatim on
that.
that
Yeah.
one, but I've heard rumors on the streets that people, old timers, just don't like her in general because this is a quote ish, not a direct quote, but a quote, not me saying it, but them saying what other people have said. That
Okay.
she thinks she knows everything and she's always right. So she's sort of got pigeonholed into like the know-it-all A student in the class who doesn't actually know it all, but thinks they do because there's not enough like feedback correction because we're all just sitting on the internet talking. So maybe this
Right.
has been building up. Like, Dawn got an email from a third party who was like, she's shitting on my project. She says it's not even a real morph or mutation separate. And I'm tired of her making my project look bad. And so not Travis, not Dawn, emailed Dawn. And he's like, okay, I'm going to go through all of her stuff she's ever said and see where and we'll just lay it on her.
So there's like 10 years of build up angry at her, like aggro.
Yeah, I think that's part of
Passive
it.
aggro. Like, you don't get to come back after 10 years and like vomit all your feelings. Like,
That's the only
I don't know.
explanation
That's
for
not
like how you
step
get
in
a
any
multi-page
therapeutic
email.
process to like terrorize and degrade someone and their life work. Like, there's so many ways to do that that aren't how he did it. But
Absolutely.
also, like, why does he care so passionately about what she's doing?
His new book's coming out this summer. Cornsnake.
Either way, isn't
2020.
his like a scientific-y type journal and hers is like a layman's
No,
pamphlet?
absolutely not. His is also a shitty layman's pamphlet. I've read it. It's just a normal cornsnake book. Where do cornsnakes live?
Okay.
They live in the southeast U.S. Where does...
Did he just expect to like crush her and like that she was just gonna like fade into the night? He didn't expect her to like call him out and be like, dude, this wasn't cool.
I don't know. I have no... This is
How
the
is that
baffling
promotion for your
part.
book?
He doesn't actually have a book coming out. I'm just guessing.
I know that's your
Yeah.
hypothesis.
I just
but
have a theory he like finally like got the time in his retired life to be like, I'm going to get ahead and do that. And I'm like, whoops, she already did it, but she did it with these 10 inaccuracies. So I'm just going to like shit on her. So no one will buy her book anymore for $20, even though she obviously did do the work. Because grandma could do it, even though grandma's dead.
it doesn't make sense to me, and those kinds of things bother me, even though I'm probably never going to get the information I need for it to make sense. These are the kind of things that just like, I don't know, grind my gears. Grind my gears corner. Is that what this is?
It can be now. It's
What is
crook in
it?
my craw.
Crook in my craw. I'm not from the South, so
I'm not either,
grind my
but I
gears
feel like
get
we
battled.
should be.
Yeah, crook in my craw. It really bothers me that he went all aggro on her, especially when she's been, I feel like, pretty public. This is just me perusing. Like I said, I'm not a longtime follower of her. This is all, since it's all been drama and brought to the forefront, looks like she's been pretty forward about her mental health.
Yeah, and why she had to be more active and less active, and then she was building up again because she was doing good.
known publicly struggling with depression and anxiety, and you're going to take your time and attack this person. No. The answer is that's not ever the solution to your problem. Even if you're aggro ancient male that feels like you're a father of an industry or whatever he thinks he is, you still have to be kind, dude. Has the
Right.
corn snake community at all piped in?
I hadn't heard
Anybody of importance?
any of it until, because I'm actually a subscriber. I've watched most of her videos. It's another easy way to like absorb random content, on while I'm doing other stuff. It's just to hear. She's just talking about morphs most of the time, so you don't have to look at it per se. And I just got it in my feed. Like, I was like, what the fuck is this? Nobody's mentioned anything about it, and I was like, I do not feel comfortable with any of this. Why would I want to buy from these people anymore? It's not professional. Was she supposed to just like run away and never tell anyone either that she was attacked? Obviously, she would have told someone and someone would have found out. So,
Yeah.
like, even if you believed all those things, you still shouldn't have released written documentation that you're a dick.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's fucked up.
Dick
Well,
move.
Sarah ever listens. Sorry this happened to you.
Absolutely.
Let us know.
Thank you for telling your story.
yeah.
Thank you for owning
It
that,
at least
not running
reveals
away and
who's a
hiding.
piece of shit. And so now we don't have to give him any money.
Right. If she's listening, you keep doing you, girl. Inaccuracies and all. That's how life works. That's how the process works. Just keep showing up because haters gonna hate, and now people know who they really are, and you just keep being you because I think you were being you before the haters showed up. So I don't know. Don't let that knock you down.
All right, moving on. Do you have any collection updates of any kind?
I have a clutch that's hatching out, but we'll touch on that in episode 6 once they've shut out.
Excellent. Cliffhanger, everybody. We always need a cliffhanger to
Yeah,
keep us
come
going.
back for episode 6.
I haven't done shit in the collection this week. I mean, I've paired and stuff, but it's nothing exciting's happened. So I'll do an update of my last clutch in the incubator next week too, because it'll be the same sort of topic.
Okay.
But I wanted to go and add an addendum to last week's because we were kind of rushing a little bit at the end. And I did calculate, at the time of last week, how much I had spent and sold total for just that year, by the way, not all years. But I spent $50,000.
Dull hairs?
And I sold before sales tax, not including sales tax, $25,000 or income tax.
That's not terrible. That's pretty good.
And I probably have 15K worth of inventory, unsold inventory.
That's awesome.
Yes, but I think my point is you can spend an extraordinary amount of money and still not have that great of a collection. I guess is my point. I mean, I have a lot of things that other people do not have, and it's pretty good.
But it was a big investment year for you.
No, that's not true. We've done the same thing for 3 years. It still is not that great of a collection. You get enough arena killing boas, and you have to retest everybody a couple times.
Yeah. How much of that's testing? Is that its own category?
Yeah. I don't know how much it is total, ever, but in this year.
This year is what I meant.
I include shipping in the testing, the shipping that is specifically for testing.
Yeah, of course.
$2,448.
Okay.
It's a better year for testing because I didn't have a boa outbreak. Last year was worse, clearly. And I didn't. That's part of why I don't bring in a ton of snakes all the time, too. If you're doing a boa panel every time, it gets hurtful in your feeling place.
Yeah.
But I guess my point with the numbers is I hope we will be 0 next year because the IRS is pretty clear about being 3 years of losses in a row is the normal amount they tolerate. And then they start being like, what are you doing up in here?
Where are you pouring the money in the backyard?
4 or 5 years, you might get a little more. And then they're like, you've triggered the hobby police. You're doing a hobby because you have a loss every year. So you need to make a profit Like if I make a profit in 2023 or something, then my 3 years of losses can happen again. But your business is really shitty then if you still are making losses.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping to technically come out positive this year, but since we're moving, hypothetically, I don't know. There are people who are convinced they'll drop 150,000 the first year, maybe another 100 the second year. Those people have quote unquote nice collections or whatever. But dropping 50K does not give you a nice collection.
No.
Which is crazy to me. Unless you bought corn snakes.
No, unless you bought 10 snakes total.
Yes. Oh, even then, I don't even know.
5 snakes total? Is that
yeah, if we all sold everything we had and bought 10 snakes, we would have nice collections. But then you have to wait 3 years as those grow up, and you would have no production, and you'd just be sitting on 10
really nice snakes.
Yeah. Which people have done that. They've looked at all of their females sold, 70% bought to whatever, $10,000 females, $20,000 females.
That's not my personality. I looked into doing the whole only buy babies, wait 3 years, and then start producing. And I knew I'd lose interest if I did just growing for 3 years.
Yeah, I don't know anybody who has ever fully done that. Everyone picks up a couple of adults. Period.
You have to keep it fun and interesting and engaging.
Right. Otherwise, your hobby is watching snakes shit and then picking it up.
Yeah.
Boa people do it more than ball people because they're just less adult boas to be bought. So they're more likely to sit on stock and not breed the first couple of years. But even in boa people, you can find like 2-year-old boas relatively easily, and they're not that big yet, so they're easy to ship. So they'll usually buy babies, but then buy a bunch of 2-year-olds and then breed the 2-year-olds in 2 years. Pretty normal. All right, that was my collection update. If you ever want to release your numbers, you can. You don't have to. I don't. It's fine.
I've got my spreadsheet going. I'm afeared, but I'll do it. I'll get it done. Maybe that'll be available in next week's episode too.
It'd be interesting to see how much you sold, like because you bought some things and bred them and then you resold them. So like you might have spent 75, but you actually sold 60. So you're only down 15, which maybe is not true. I'm just guessing.
Yep, I need to run a lot of numbers. I'm afeared of the numbers.
All right. But your plan is to be profitable next year, not just break even?
I would like to break even next year along with like my expenses, and I'd like to get like a $10,000 snake, and I'd like to get another ARS. And so breaking even and making a profit can be construed 2 different ways. So I would like to use snake money to purchase those things, if that makes sense. Okay. But I plan on making a lot of what's going to go into my rack rather than buying like I have for the last 18 months of nonstop buying. I have reached the capacity that I want, and I have a couple of things on my buy list, but for the most part, I need to make my breeding stock because they're not really things that I can buy.
Good job.
So we'll see. Maybe it'll be another year, but hopefully I can support my own business without drawing from, the family pot.
Yeah, I think a goal of breaking even this year is doable. Like since you have a lofty male goal and a lot of infrastructure costs that should technically be business expenses too, as you like build out your little shack, it's going to be expensive.
My shack comes on Thursday.
Good job.
I forgot. I do have an update.
Here it comes.
It's coming on Thursday, and I messaged the spray foam guys, and so I'm waiting for them to get back to me about when they can spray foam.
Right.
So
that'll
be
fun. It's happening.
Woohoo.
Our main meat and potatoes today is breeding rodents. Jana, what do you breed?
I only breed African soft-furred rats.
Bold move.
Bold move that most people do not understand.
Me too. I also do not understand. I breed rats, mice, and I'm playing around with her ASFs a little bit. Not approving of them though. We'll see how long they live. But we'll get into that later. How do you run your ASFs?
ASFs can only be run in a colony configuration because they have a very complex social structure, unlike Norwegian rats and mice.
I mean, mice will kill each other too.
Oh, will they?
Yeah.
You can't take the male out and put them with
No,
different...
they'll fuck each other up.
I didn't know that. So
what's your number? Like
so
2, 6, or... That's what I meant.
So I have 2 that I'm testing out size-wise. I normally run 1.4 or 1.5.
In a cement tub or a FB40?
FB. It's the Rodent tub. It's like an extra deep. I want to say it's like an FB15.
Okay.
I normally run 1.4, but I grow up the colony in 1.5 in case one keels over. If one doesn't keel over, because they take a really long time to grow up. One doesn't keel over in that time, I'll feed off one of the females. But I've been trying out. I also have the 3-inch 24 by 24 rodent tubs. I can't remember what they're called, but I've been trying a 212 colony in that. One of them is producing like crazy, and the other one keeps eating their babies, which I never normally have problems with that. And so I split them up back into the bigger tubs, but I've left the 212, and they are producing most of my babies right now, even though I have 4 other colonies of the 1.4. So I haven't decided.
How many colonies total do you have of both kinds, both sizes?
So I had 3 of the 212s, and I had 4 of the 1.4s, but I had to split up one of the 212s.
Do they grow out in a separate space, or do you grow them out within the tub that they were born in? Sort of.
So everybody comes out at 3 to 4 weeks from their colony tub into a grow out tub. If I'm going to grow up a colony, when I wean them, I put that colony together in their own tub that they'll be in forever.
But you keep the ones that are going to be fed together in a group situation until they're fed?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. What do you feed?
I have fed a variety of things. Right now, off of your advice, I am doing the doggy bag with supplemented protein. I'm not seeing a huge difference. I used to feed Missouri rat and mouse, which is not the same as 6F. It has, I believe, 23% protein instead of the 18. And they always did really well on that. And then it got really hard to get that. Plus, it's the most expensive of the rodent blocks. And so I tried Kent's. It's like a green bag. And a bunch of my colonies crashed production and weren't producing. And I had like a big gap that I'm just now recovering from because they just did not do well on that. So they're doing the doggy bag. I do sprinkle in. I have some high protein dog food that I just sprinkle into for kicks, and they're producing really well right now. And I'd like to get another rack running because I have an obscene amount of snakes and very little rats. But I think the doggy bag is working as well as the Missouri rat and mouse was. I supplement with black oil sunflower seeds and mealworms, the dried ones.
Also from Tractor Supply? Is that where you get them?
Yeah, everything comes from Tractor Supply. If I can't get it from Tractor Supply, then I'm not going to use it.
Yeah, people need to remember or know for the first time that this is like a weirdly... We're not close enough to the grain belt or like the South to get any of the normal sort of density of feed mills. Like where I'm from, there's a feed mill every 5 minutes, even though it's not even a grain belt. It's just like we're getting ready to run like a cow-calf operation. So they'll bring in corn and wheat and whatever and grind feed that's like local very often, which they do that here too. It's just not the same. Like the amount of like livestock operations is not the same. So if you're in the Southeast, you can almost take your pick of like 3 or 4 rodent blends from different companies at any time and have a pallet of them brought to your co-op or your southern states or something, and you can buy it. Here, there's 3 choices. Doggy bag, really expensive Missouri or a local mill flavor that apparently doesn't do good. So I also feed doggy bag.
Missouri, ours doesn't even carry Missouri 6F or rat and mouse. You have to special order it. They are a hot mess on special orders right now.
Yeah, Wilco, our local co-op, they do keep 6F, the 50-pound bags in stock, but it's $34 or something like that, which would be cheaper just to buy it from one of the other people if you're going to run 6F and not the rat and mouse.
Yeah. I will have to say is my ASFs never smelled beef on the Missouri because they put in, is it like yucca root or something?
Yeah, yucca extract. But you could buy that and put it in their water if you were really desperate.
It's not bad. ASFs in general do not smell strongly, but I never noticed their smell before. And like the day it's time to change, I do it once a week. The day it's time to change their bedding or like the night before, I'm like, yep, it's time, because I can just start to smell it, but it's still not. Driving from your house to my house, which if anybody doesn't know, it's a 90-minute drive with 25 rats. Those rats smell worse than my entire
And you keep your ASFs
rat.
in your house currently, is that correct?
Currently, yeah, they're in my office, which is right now is our snake room. So the smell is very minimal, even on the doggy bag. There was zero smell on the Missouri.
And then they're going to go into your shed eventually, your snake shed.
I'm hoping they're going to go into our garage. I'm still negotiating
I'm still negotiating.
with the husband.
Like,
in
I
case anyone
agree
needed
that
clarification.
if you're going to run rodents in your house or in your basement, you should run ASFs. I guess what I don't agree is if you're going to run them outside or in a garage, do they need to be ASFs? We'll see. We'll look at the numbers. Crunch the numbers.
We'll see. I love that I run ASFs, and I know that no one understands, and everyone is shaking their head and like, why does Jana run ASFs? She's an idiot. Don't worry, she'll see the light soon, and I still haven't seen the light.
It's probably because you didn't actually run rats yet anywhere.
No, I never have run rats, but I've seen your rats, and I've seen other people's rats, and every time I see them, I go, I never want to run rats. Although we are talking about getting a rat shed.
That's what I'm
And
saying.
if I have a rat shed, then I'd have to run regular rats with the ASF.
Exactly.
But I
Well,
really
you probably won't even run ASFs, like if they don't warm up.
love ASFs.
Different strokes for different folks.
I
That's what
know
I'm saying.
I got lots of time to come to Jesus and realize that I'm dumb, but
Maybe we can just talk about the pros and cons of ASF since I just started to run them and I was sort of ASF curious. And I bought 2 colonies from Jana. They were doing okay in the summer, but I run an unheated rat space. And rats and mice don't give a shit if it's 50 degrees or not. By the way, they will breed all the time, perfectly, forever.
what are they doing right now? Do they hate it?
They just are not breeding. They're fine. The ASFs are fine. They just don't breed anymore, no matter how old they are or what they're doing. Of the 2 colonies you gave me, I've killed completely the one that never produced more than 1 litter. And I kept the other one to see. They produced 3 litters and then stopped. And I've kept most of their offspring and made 2 colonies from them to see when they would start, if they start at all. If they don't start for another month, they're all going to go in the freezer.
They should have dropped their first colony at 12 weeks. That's what I see.
It might not even have been 12 weeks since like the oldest babies were born.
Yeah, I'd have to look and see when you bought those. I thought it was summer.
Yeah, but here it goes from kind of summer to rain
Winter.
o'clock.
Wet winter. Yeah.
Yeah, really quickly. So I'm also not aware of how many weeks it's been. I probably should have written it down. Like the oldest colony probably should be dropping litters or very close to it. So they have like a month to drop babies and have proven that they've acclimated to being 50 degrees.
I feel like I've started colonies after you had
The
big
first
enough
set
to
of
be
babies.
weaned. Yeah. And they've already had at least 2 litters.
All right. It just means they don't like the temperature, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Here's why I'm very resistant to heating anything here. We live in somewhere where it's uniquely very mild. Not super cold, not super hot. It doesn't get so cold we absolutely have to have heat, and it doesn't get so hot we absolutely have to have air conditioner unless it's the one time of year when it's 100 degrees. You could save a lot of money running your rodent production program without heat, unlike anywhere else in the rest of the country. Heat or air conditioner.
Right. Especially if you were in the shade, like where we're talking about putting our rat shack would be under some tall trees.
Right, so you
So
probably
even when it
never
was
need
100
AC
degrees
even if it's 100
In the
degrees.
summer, those 2 days in the shade, it's going to be 80.
Right.
So throw a
And
fan in there and you're fine.
you're right. And it's warm enough in the winter. It's almost never freezing. If you're even, and my little area is not super well insulated and it always is venting. It still doesn't freeze in there, even if it's freezing outside, because we're not quite frozen enough. It's like just.
Do you recommend less insulation so that it is venting, or do you think that I should fully insulate it and have a good venting system?
Here, I think it literally doesn't matter because it's so not cold or hot. It's the weirdest thing ever. We should be like into this. It costs so much to live here. It's insane. But the one feature that's good for rodent breeding is that you don't actually have to heat or cool anything if you run cold weather rodents.
It has a lot of appeal to me, although I love running ASFs.
You could run ASFs in your garage and then run rats in your shed, is my thought. Like, you can still run ASFs.
But I also don't have any plan to have a big snake. So what do you do with your ex-breeders?
You have to find somebody who buys them.
Okay.
And you go to the show, so if you plan on doing more shows...
We have the snake house. I could probably donate them if I was so inclined.
I don't sell a ton of jumbos, but I also don't... So I have snakes that can eat jumbos, by the way, in case anybody's wondering. But I do have people who come buy them, because I wouldn't eat enough fast enough to keep up with my own demand. So people who have retics, people who have berms, they need like a bunch of jumbos, because that's what they need. You just need like one friend who has a berm. They'll sometimes double up jumbos because they don't want to go buy a rabbit. It's still cheaper to buy 2 jumbos and hit 3.5 pounds of meat than 1 rabbit at 3.5 pounds.
So what you're saying is there's enough of a market that it doesn't matter.
Right. Or you could go get a dog. May not be a good idea, but then feed it like raw food or whatever. Or donate it. It doesn't matter. But you don't have to donate it for sure. Especially since you're going to the show. That feels like an easy win. Be like, I'm going to undercut the market on jumbos. Price them kind of cheap just to get rid of them at the show. Whatever, like I have 10. Bye. And since the show's every 3 months, you're not going to sit on that much inventory.
That's good advice. Thank you.
Since we're still on ASFs versus rats take about the same amount of time to get to maturity, but they are more meat sooner because they grow faster because they get bigger in the end. So yes, they blow past the appropriate ball python size, but I can make more rats per unit space than I can ASFs. And I've heard people say like the exact opposite, but I don't mean like number of heads. I mean grams of animal.
Right.
I make more grams of animal faster than mice or ASFs because they're just not as big.
No, absolutely. There's no contest there. But when does a rat reach medium? At what age-ish?
If it's
like what week?
a
Is that 6 weeks?
Cared for rat, it's 4 weeks.
4 weeks and it's a medium?
If he was with his mom the whole time, you don't pull him early? Absolutely. And he's a buck? 100%.
That's insane.
I'm like fighting off. That's why I'm like, oh no, I have too many mediums. Which is
and I have that personality where it would be like, crap, now they're large. Every week you clean, and then that's when you go through your inventory.
And
that's what I do right now.
Call off mediums if you don't need them right this second, because you don't need them any bigger than that ever, unless you have 20 bows. But you definitely don't. And I can, not just because of you, but other people will come and buy 60 mediums because they know ball python time is coming, frozen mediums, and they need the backup for their own supply. That is a normal thing to happen. They will not come and buy 60 larges, though. So you have to...
Never.
You have to stop the train at mediums. Choo-choo, runaway train. And the other thing is, ASF people, even people who are like a strong proponent of ASFs, still admit they will feed 3 ASFs to an adult female ball python when she's building.
Why?
Because it's like 70 grams, 70, 90. Like that would be a medium if you added all that together.
Really? See, I don't hear that in the ASF communities that I'm involved in.
I think Gavin did it. He's like, I will still triple feed a female because I don't think they're getting enough. A lot of people make up fantasies about how it's more nutritious or something.
They're saying
a mammal.
Protein.
A mammal is a mammal. Last time I checked, and those little adult ASFs are the fattest fucking things I've ever seen. I don't want anybody to tell me any different. So, like a young medium is leaner than an adult ASF, like because it's a medium rat. It's still a young animal, so they get fat in old age. So I would rather feed a medium rat to a breeding girl because that has more protein because it's not is not an old man who's got like 30% body fat at this point. So not sure what people are smoking. No offense, Jana. Probably is pretty good because I'm not sure where you're coming from. The best part about ASFs to me is they don't blow past the slice. So you can sit on your inventory for a long time without having to micromanage it.
So for me, that's a huge win, is that I don't have to micromanage my inventory. Not that I ever have enough inventory for that to be a thing.
And you only have like 6 tubs, so I don't know what you're talking about. 8
I have
tubs?
1 rack. Give me a break here. I have 13 tubs.
Okay. What a burden. What a burden.
What a burden. That's all I have room for. I would love to have 5 racks of rats or a big ARS.
What a burden. My management decision was like, what if I had an inventory that could stay alive all the time, but would be never too big and wouldn't have to be frozen thaw? Because that's like the torture of the universe, is right size, right time for the right people.
Right size, right time for the right people. I don't have a euthanasia setup. If I have to euthanize a rat, I have to do cervical dislocation. I also was breeding before everything went to the office. All of my rats and snakes were in my living room next to my couch.
All right, so of course that's going to smell. It's in your living room next to your couch.
I can't run regular rats in my living room next to my couch where I can run ASFs and it's not a problem.
Well, you're getting a shed soon, so we'll see what happens.
Yes, Thursday. Yay! That was the original reason.
How many ASFs do you produce right now anyway? Like, how much of it are you actually producing to cover your demands?
Oh, nothing.
Right. So, like, it almost doesn't matter in your case. You can almost not run ASS if you wanted and just buy it in, because you're basically, are you buying like 80%, 70% of your feeders needs?
80% of my feeders.
It's tough. Life's tough. I don't know.
It's really tough. And buying feeders is not sustainable, especially when...
We'll see. I crunched the numbers.
Oh, I can't wait to hear your numbers.
Spoiler.
Because I think that it is ridiculously cheaper to run your own.
We'll see.
But you run a lot.
We'll
so I want to hear your numbers. Are we ready for that? Because I'm ready to listen.
No, I haven't even. Are you done just talking about ASFs? So I'll start with like...
No, I haven't said the pros and cons. Or maybe I have. Let me reiterate. I like that they never are too big for ball pythons. I like that they are lower smell. I like that I can have them in my house because that's what my current situation is. For cons, they take 100 years to get to size, probably about 12 weeks to get to be like the same size as like a medium, a small medium-ish. So like a bigger small, which is as big as they're ever going to get. I have a couple of lines that are pretty big, so they get to be like 90-ish grams. But that's, like you said, that's the ex-breeder fatty daddies. So
fatty daddies.
How healthy is that? Fatty daddy.
And there's nothing wrong, by the way, with feeding a fatty daddy to your snake.
Oh,
kids
my
at
snakes
home.
love the fatty daddy.
It's just like if you were only feeding that and never breaking it up.
Point for point.
Yeah.
Next to a medium rat is much leaner, is what you were trying to say. I'm just saying that the fatty daddies are the ones that are pushing the 100 grams.
Right. They definitely do get very comparable to a small medium rat, which is perfect for a ball python. I just don't know. The other negative to me is no ASF has incited a snake who's off feed in my collection to begin to feed. So
people say that they do, and they say that they're like crack, and they say that they get stuck on them. I have not experienced that. I have experienced the same number of snakes going off feed. You said if they're off feed, an ASF is not going to bring them back on feed.
Right. So they're not magic. They're not like snake rat.
They're not magic.
They're just another kind of rodent with different features and flaws. I would definitely recommend, if you really wanted to run your own colonies and you were literally in an apartment and this is what you have to work with, then absolutely ASF, nothing else. Because it does smell nicer. I don't even know why. Like, I can tell it smells different in just the one bin when I'm looking at it.
Right. It's
and that
so
would be like
better.
Heated and cooled and whatever. So like, cool. But if you're in like...
Or if you have like a significant other that's like, you can't have rodents, they're disgusting. ASFs are a nice thing. You can like sneak in and be like, they've been here a month. You haven't noticed. Can I have rodents?
So those are all good reasons to run them, and then the size and whatever. But if you're interested in raw production because you have a couple hundred snakes, and you're not heating and cooling your room and all these other sort of requirements, I'm not 100% sure if you should be running exclusively ASFs. You could probably still run it as part of a management strategy, but we'll see. My operation, I'll repeat it for the kids at home, is a third garage bay in a garage that's not heated or cooled, fairly poorly insulated, but there's enough BTUs that it never freezes inside. But it does get cold, like quite cold, like 50s, like now, this time of year. I estimated a normal month's expenses as $465.
Whoa.
Then that is just doggy bag, flake bedding, pellet bedding, and then $40 for incidentals, paper towels, CO2, sunflower seeds, whatever, snacks, extra nipples, tubing, bins, whatever.
You don't run PZD?
I did, but I don't think it changes anything.
Okay.
In my situation. I still have a bag. I just don't even use it anymore. It doesn't seem to make a difference. Why would I waste my time? I also had like issues with them eating it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not sure if they're so this dumb that they eat it, that I want the snakes eating them eating the PDZ.
Oh, no, you don't.
So I just don't run it anymore. I just use it in like the chicken coop or whatever, where it's probably supposed to be. Because rats and mice rustle around in the substrate and pull out sunflower seeds that are coated in PDZ because the PDZ's down there. Mm-hmm. So you can see them eating it. I don't know what it's made of. If it's made out of baking soda, it's fine. If it's made out of anything else, pretty sure I have 94 bins. This includes sort of an even split between cement tubs and an ARS, whatever the rat version of 5540 is, and a maternity rack with 12 slots. And then 3 random like grow out bins on the ground that are like plastic tubs because there's just too much going on. I need like 10 more racks, basically. I run mice and colony style. They're supposed to be 210, but like the number wildly diverges because I don't always pay attention to the mice that hard. Whoops. Sorry, mice. So sometimes I'll go in there and like, there's $5 all of a sudden. And I have to realign because I let the babies grow up in the colonies. I don't pull them anymore.
Why do you run mice?
I have an insane number of colubrids. I don't know if you remember that.
I do remember that.
And I do start baby boas the first 2 times they get a live, eyes open, fuzzy mouse first. Then they get frozen thawed forever after that. Obviously, ball pythons prefer mice to start. They will start on rats, but they definitely prefer hopper mice.
Okay, so they're for the ball python babies that won't take a frozen thawed yet.
I don't even start them frozen thawed. They get 3 live hoppers, and then, or rats if they want a live rat, and then I do frozen thawed if I'm going to convert them. I do like to try to convert them because they are more flexible as adults, and for pets, I do try. I do always start live. I don't need to not do it. I have enough mice floating around.
Okay.
So it cost me $465 to take care of the amount of rodents I have, which sounds kind of expensive, but I sell on average about that amount of money a month to cover those expenses of like outside rat sales. So
your rat sales are paying for your snakes to eat.
Yes. And so on paper, that sounds good. But let me get into why maybe it's not as good as you would think. So in July, I sold $321 worth of rats. So that's actually less than the cost.
Okay.
In August, I sold $565. So it's more. But I pay the state of Washington 10% for sales tax. So they don't charge it separately for rats because it's too hard to be like, I need, Thurston roll rates 8%. So if I'm like, I'm going to sell you a $3 rat, $3.24. It's too hard. People can't handle that in their life. So I lose 10% off of all those numbers immediately.
Yuck.
Yeah. So it's not economical in the months where I'm not selling any frozen. If I don't sell any frozen, I do not break even in terms of expenses. If I'm just selling lives to like a couple people every weekend, I don't break even. But I'll like have an inventory of frozen that someone will come in and like a wild Jana appears. But there's other people too that do this. Will come in and be like, I need $120 worth of medium, smalls, and larges or something. I don't know. And so they buy a bunch all at once. That's the only thing that keeps that part afloat. So we're at like 94 bins. About 30 or 40 of them are maternity for rats. Obviously, you can't do maternity for mice. There's only like 5 or 6 tubs of mice. Right now, there's 4 tubs of ASFs. It's probably going to be 0 tubs of ASFs. We'll see.
I don't think running ASFs more than a tub of ASFs, if it was helping picky eaters, which it doesn't always, make sense in your situation.
I just wanted them to acclimate to the weather, mostly. I just wanted to see if they would.
I'm really sad The
They did not
babies
seem...
that were born there are not producing.
Right. Those ones are definitely not producing. I don't even think they've even given birth. Like, I don't see any evidence of birth in Eden. They've never even ovulated.
Interesting.
So I probably have 120-ish rat does. Maybe as little as 90 certain times. Does that seem like a lot?
Well, actually, no, because of how many snakes you have, because they say 1 doe per snake.
If you're feeding them every week.
Yes.
But I don't feed everybody every week.
Oh, I just meant for your ball pythons.
I don't even feed those every week. I don't feed males every week. They get fat and they go off food. And you're like, stupid animals.
Even the ones that are like breeding a lot?
They can have it every week, but most males do not get it every week if they're not breeding, and they're back to weight because they will go off food just because they're full of food.
Yeah, I feed breeding males every week. They get offered a wean. And non-breeding males, I feed every other week a wean.
Right. I might even push it to 3 weeks. And then boas do not eat every week ever in their whole life. So a large number of my animals are boas. So when they're eating mediums, they're eating it every 3 or 4 weeks. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So with 90 to 120 does, I make about 550 rats a month. That's about 100-ish rats a week, which is the correct amount for that many does. My cull criteria for an adult female rat is 8 pups or less, whenever she falls below that. I don't cull based on like time in colony or time in whatever, because I do like a modified maternity. So the colonies are too full. It'll be 1 buck to like 6 does. But when she's obviously pregnant, she gets removed and gives birth in a small cage, if there's one available. And then at 2 weeks, whenever the pups are sort of puppish to weanish, she and another female will join together and live in a ladies' colony, just the two of them and their pups. They don't fight over pups at that point. Rats will rarely kill pups that are in the colony that they're in, because the mom defends her pups, but they do not do good in the colony that they're in. They get trampled, they get lost. If there's 2 litters in the same colony, they'll steal and they'll hurt the pups to like steal them. They'll like tear them apart basically to steal them. So you'll find pups that are injured. So I prefer to remove as soon as possible. But if nobody else is in that colony and I'm out of space, I'll leave a single doe and her pups in a colony that's not super full. So like maybe there's 1 male and 2 other females and her. And everybody else has been removed. She can stay with her pups. There's enough space that she can do a good job. But they absolutely do get bigger if they're separated and she's alone to do what she needs to do with them. That's how I can get a medium rat in 4 weeks. Is one mom just smashing. Sometimes they grow as much as like 5 grams a night. Like if I have a wean or something, so I'm like, I don't know what size it's going to be tomorrow. We'll see. It's a wean today, but it might be a small tomorrow. It's crazy. Especially little bucks. So I kill bucks preferentially at smalls and mediums, and I hold on to does only because they grow slow enough that they stay mediums for 2 weeks before becoming larges. A buck would blow past it and become a large quickly. So I can keep a medium doe for 2 weeks as a saleable medium. It's not too big yet.
Okay.
But a buck would be, not ball python worthy. He'd be 150 grams by like his 6th week. And he's basically halfway to a large anyway at that point. I kill bucks on purpose, but I might keep mediums does. And then I have does to replace because now they'll size up to my larges. And I do have people who buy live larges and large jumbos. You keep the gender that's the most useful for that. But if you really needed to like crank out 30 jumbos really quickly, you would obviously keep the bucks because they get bigger faster.
But also if your female becomes a large or a jumbo and she doesn't sell, you can roll her into your breeding.
Yes, you're always ready to replace.
That's not bad.
Right. Most people do it the way I do it, where you call all males no matter what by 100 grams, no matter what. Because you can always slot in, like if a buck dies that's old somewhere, you can slot in a medium buck just fine. And usually they'll be like, you're not sexually mature enough. But they figured it out. They'll start fucking right away with all those mature does. You can substitute.
Teach them the rope.
Yeah, they'll be like, I'm an experienced woman. There's 4 of us in here and just 1 of you. Those balls work though, it's fine. So I don't keep...
Freshman initiation.
Yeah, I don't keep any... He's got hazed as motherfucker. And if someone's like, I need a large jumbo, I don't sell them. Unless I know I have a cull doe ready, I'll just go pick a buck that's an adult somewhere and just substitute a medium buck for him in that colony.
Oh, okay, that's smart.
If I kept jumbos just in stock, that would be the biggest waste of time I've ever experienced in my life, because maybe 1 or 2 people buy it live every 1 or 2 weeks.
They gotta be working.
Yeah, it is. And they eat too much and they just get fatter and fatter.
In a bin somewhere.
No, never do it.
No freeloading rats.
That's the worst. Rats can eat a lot of food for no reason also, like with no...
They're bored, yeah.
Yeah. They'll just like chew it and waste it. I mean, mice do that too.
I have a colony that every week chews through all the food on top of their bin.
Yeah, or they'll collect it from the top and then put it over.
Much that I put on top, because every week I'm putting food on top of that one, but it's like every 2 or 3 weeks that I'm putting food on top of everybody else.
Right.
They're just
those bins.
They're bored.
There's somebody's doing something shenanigans, which is a call criteria for me too. It's just shenanigans.
Yeah, but they're putting out like 20 babies a week. Oh, no. That's my best producing colony. I'm like, you chew through the food. I'll just make sure I measure it before I put it out there. I should probably throw in some apple wood into there.
Yeah, I do put wood in just to keep them entertained mostly. But I usually call fast enough that they don't technically need it because they're dead before their teeth have overgrown. But it gives them something to do. They're distracted.
I normally throw in apple wood. I just haven't baked the newest batch, because if I don't bake it, the gnats are worse in my snake room.
I believe it.
And gnats are... Ugh. So I can handle a little bit, but a lot of gnats is really bothersome to me, so I've been avoiding it.
So where were we? We make 550 rats a month, approximately. I just guesstimated 200 mice. It could be anything. And that's like pinkies up to larges. I mostly pull them as pinkies, so they don't sort of count. What do I have right now? Maybe 40 or 50 baby colubrids that would eat a pinky. So they'll just get taken out as pinkies and count. But a pinky costs 50 cents frozen. So every time I can save 50 cents on a pinky, it's still worth something. So that's why it's in my $200 head calculation. Even though the expense of a pinky is not quite the same as the expense of a 4-week-old whatever.
Right.
I estimated, based on 750 head and a cost of production of $465 a month, that it costs 62 cents to make a rodent for me.
And you're saying that's not profitable?
Just hold on.
Way
it's
better. Okay.
Worse.
Whoa. Okay, I'll wait.
So on paper, you're like, okay, if I could buy $2 whatevers, instead I buy them all for 62 cents. That's got to be a great deal. And I made, the cost of expense back. I guesstimated that the average cost of a rat that I buy would have bought, if it was retail, would be $2.25, which is the price of a small right now in Cold-Blooded Cafe.
Yes, it is. That is where I get my rodents. It's very expensive.
So if I needed to buy 400, and that's just like the average price, obviously a pinky is 50 cents and a jumbo is $3 or $4 or something online. And I needed 400 for my personal. It's like $900 a month worth of expenses.
That sounds
for
right.
my collection. Yeah. And you're like, okay, so I used $0 and made $900 worth of value, basically. So I fed my collection for free. Sounds good.
Sign me up. Is it?
I think the answer is maybe, which doesn't sound that exciting. Because I looked up minimum wage in Thurston and Washington. It's $14.49.
$14.40, okay.
In my county.
Oh, I see where you're going with this. Yikes. Okay, go ahead.
So it's about 10 hours a week to take care of these ones. And that doesn't include counting and sales, which is another goddamn 5 to 7 hours easily. Especially when people are like, I want one. It needs to be white.
And
please.
42 grams.
Yeah, and I have to go through and sort and weigh. Like, I have a customer, and I like them a lot, but they're like, I only want large mice, and I don't sort them by size. So I have to go through and find basically a Holdback mouse that is not yet bred. It's only a very narrow window of time. So I have to touch 50 things to find 2. It takes 20 minutes of my life to pull their order, and all they're spending $3. There's a real, so if we ignore that hourly wage that I do not get, by the way, and if I used my 10 hours a week to go work at McDonald's, I would make about $1,050, $1,044. That doesn't include tax, but if you go work at Walmart, you get 17. So it was like probably close enough. So that means each rodent now costs about $1.40, not 62 cents. So it's getting closer and closer to the real price. You are maybe still saving a little bit of money. If you're doing that much labor just to save now $400 a month, is it worth it? Because you would be buying that instead. I guess I'm not speaking very clearly. Let me start over. So the difference is diminishing if you actually value your time at your local minimum wage rate. The difference is that doesn't matter, though, if you weren't going to get a job anyway. Like if you were the sole caregiver of your children, you're not going to get another job anyway.
If COVID took over the world and you are now stuck at home.
Yeah, then that equation doesn't matter.
At your wonderful local McDonald's.
But if you would have been making $70,000, $80,000 a year around here, which isn't that hard because jobs like that are not that weird here, it is way more economical to go to work and pay somebody else to make your rats for you. 100%. Like I lose so much time on rats. It's insane. Like my time per unit value does not make any sense at all with the rodents. If you think of the rodents in different ways, like as a loss leader, like I sell you a rodent and maybe I sell you a snake later. I sell you a snake and then I sell you rodents later and you come back because maybe you want another snake. If you think about it that way, maybe it makes more sense. But there's a reason why most of the main rodent breeders are in the South. It's because the cost of labor is cheaper there. So they could pay someone $8 an hour federal minimum wage, and the rat now becomes closer to the cost of production in terms of raw materials. It is not that clear cut around here with the way mortgages cost and sheds and stuff. I'm not sure. So your reason for wanting to do it is like has to be something else. Like I want to ensure the quality of my animals that are going into my snakes.
And you want to ensure that you have the availability because it's not the South, so the availability is not
right
as good. And if you're relying on Cold Blooded Cafe, they sell out.
They do sell out,
and soon, soon they will be sold out.
So I don't think it's necessarily a mistake when you're a more mature collection to be feeding large percent frozen thaw because it might frankly be cheaper. Like the cost of production of a pinky is actually. It's cheaper for you to buy it than you to make it yourself. Because labor is what's expensive here, in my opinion.
Summarize what you just said, because that was a lot of information.
It was a lot. I don't even know what I'm saying. So someone who's just starting out, they are first starting out, you need to go buy your rats from a local person or buy in frozen and convert all your stuff to frozen. There's no reason to be running even one rat colony if you're small, very small, like sub 20 animals. And you go to work full time. Unless you really want to make this your like Saturday hobby of 4 hours a week for those couple of racks. If that's what you want to do to like defray some of your costs, because that's going to be your fun time and it doesn't impact the amount of financial gain you have in your normal 9 to 5, then that's fine. You're sort of economizing your business. And that's why a lot of people do it. They're like, it costs a lot of money to feed these snakes and I'm not getting production yet, so I need to cut costs. But it takes more time than you think. And if you could be doing something else that's like better for your marriage or better for your family or better for your job productivity, your job makes more money per hour than breeding rats, period.
Always. Ever.
Always. But the equation starts to turn again when you get to the middle size where maybe you've gone half time at work or you're getting ready to transition to like a big time business. And it's very important that all of your females eat every week because you want their follicles to grow at a certain rate. And so you will pay any cost of labor of another person or whatever to ensure that your business works a certain way. So you're forcing your own supply and you can pay someone to do it or you're okay taking the time to do it. That's also an acceptable time to do it. It is acceptable to like have rats and then sell them, but it is in this area not something I would recommend to anybody, and I do it. So you're like, what are you talking about? I have a master's degree. I look for people's 20-gram large mouse that has to be white. It takes me a long time. Okay.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
That context, that is insane. But you're also like the sole caregiver of your son who's
Right.
not
That's
yet
the only way it makes
employed.
sense. Don't leave your job and you have nothing else better to do to breed rats in this area, is what I'm saying. Or maybe in any area. It's just like if you're not trained, or if you just don't want a job, period, which I can understand that, and you're just like, I want a small business, then hire out the labor of running the rat stuff and you just be in charge. You finance and do management. Because this is like manual farm labor. And I have a master's degree, by the way, in case you're remembering. That's what this is. There's no like executive decisions here. I'm clean and blue for a long time, all the time. And then managing sales. So yes, people will often get into them. I've sold countless starter rat packs. None of these people still breed because they all figure it out that time is money. And sometimes it's worth paying someone else to do a job. So I don't even produce all of my own animals. I buy in most of the small stuff during breeding season. I don't really know if I would want to be big enough to fully support myself, because then it would take too much time away from the rest of what I'm doing to like triple my rat production. I'm good.
That is good food for thought, because I do want to triple or quadruple my rat production, but right now it takes very little of my time. But it is my least favorite thing.
It's going to be even leaster.
Leaster. Like, I'd rather do dishes than clean the rats. And I hate
ran
doing dishes.
4 racks for a long time, and that felt like I could do that in a couple hours on the weekend.
That's what I want to run is 4. Or one of the big 50/40 ARS
That's probably more than 4.
rats.
What is it, 46?
Oh, you mean 4 tubs?
No, 4 racks of 6 cement tubs was my initial.
Oh, okay.
And that was one sort of Saturday morning a week. And I did not need to sell any because I used all of them and had to buy frozen to finish.
Okay.
That was pretty easy. And it's like you work full time or you're a caregiver full time and you just add one task to your weekend. But doing what I do now, where I make 600 or whatever heads of animals, and I have chosen to sell extra to make money, it has become sort of probably 20 hours a week of just like wasted time, checking, double checking, cleaning, management, catching a loose rat, whatever. Water, nipple explosion, somebody that was loose chewed the blinds. Like, I have to look in the rat room twice a day. I don't have to look at a snake twice a day.
Right.
Drowned bins. Just the nipple gets stuck in the open position in the tub. The bucket leaks out and drowns everyone.
You're really selling it. You're really making me rethink my life choices.
Oh my, people have come up, like I've told you, I sold like all of these colonies to people and they're like, I'm going to save so much money. And I'm like, okay, but you're going to lose so much time. So if time is precious to you now, sell more expensive snakes or something and buy that shit in, because time ain't getting any more profuse. And frankly, I know people are like, the nipple system makes it so much more convenient. Not really. It's kind of more convenient, but I still have to do bottles for bins that have small rats in it because they're not strong enough to actuate the nipple, and I can't get any of the nipples quite the right tightness versus looseness so they don't leak, but the animals grow at a rate that I expect. And small mice will also die. Weaned mice aren't strong enough either. Even though they do learn to jump up and drink, they're not strong enough to move enough of the water enough, and they will die. So still have to use bottles anyway. I know.
I run bottles right now, and I don't love that.
And
they're also heated, so I have to refill bottles 2 or 3 times a week. Grow out tubs have to have 3 times a week because there's more in them.
Steven runs like the morning routine. He does bottles every morning, everywhere. I run relatively dense. Not every bottle is empty, but every bottle gets checked at least. And if it's less than half full, it gets filled. And a lot of them are gone by one day. I am kind of trying to dissuade you, but also not. But I just want you to think about...
You've dissuaded me, and it's demoralizing. I did not expect that this is how this was going to go.
People look at the $900 I saved and they're like, there's no way to be in this hobby unless you're breeding your own rodents, because I couldn't afford to feed this many snakes while waiting for them to breed. Right? So that is true. But you could afford to feed them if you were working. You know what I mean? And only transition to full-time snake stuff when you were actually financially able to do so, instead of using it as like a stopgap measure to not go back to whatever pre-COVID activity you were doing. This isn't like a personal judgment of Jana. This is a me thing. I'm doing it. I chose not to go back to work, even though Alex was like, technically could have gone to daycare or something. I just wanted to hang out with him until he went to kindergarten. So what do I do with my time? This is what I chose to do.
Clean rat shit with your master's degree.
I'll use it this time. It'll be betting. Oh, Lord. So there's more to chew on than I think people think about. And that's why most people don't. Even mature people in the hobby do not run their own collections because it's much easier and cheaper in terms of time to pay someone else, especially if most of your colony, already proven, takes frozen thawed. Run racks for the lives, for the picky eaters, for the ones you want to guarantee that they eat every week, like females when they're building follicles. But consider being like Garrick Meyer, where he buys frozen in for most of his stuff, and he buys live for the stuff that is not
Right.
important.
So here's where I'm at with all the information you just gave me, which was a lot. So here's how I'm processing that. I can't get a job right now because I have a 3-year-old and I'm her caregiver.
Good job. Most important job.
Yes. With that, I am not bringing in any income, and it is not sustainable for me to spend $400 to $600 a month on frozen thawed plus live for the live eaters. Whereas I run one of my racks and it takes me maybe 2 hours a week of labor, and I get, let's say, 20 to 25% of my production. So if I had 4, let's say that would cover my whole production. That's only costing me like $50 to run that.
You're already pressed for time now, and you went up to 8 hours a week just for cleaning, not for management or pairing of mice or sorting or whatever.
But what I'm saying is that I don't have the ability to just get a job and pay for it.
I know, and that's always people's arguments about like, why would you like value your time and use that in the equation?
No, you absolutely need to do that, and I understand your math. I'm saying that at the point that I'm at, I see that in the future you're right, and I should probably buy. But I also worry about availability in this area. I worry about...
You should be worried about that.
That freaks me out. Like, I want to be able to feed my own and be self-sufficient. Being self-sufficient is a big deal to me. I also, the idea of doing 10 hours a week cleaning rats sounds like the worst job in the world. I feel you're maybe so hard of whether or not that's worth it.
I can just tell you right now that there are times where I'm like, Alex, you do not get my full time and attention because I'm supposedly your primary caregiver, but also I have to go do rats. So watch TV for 6 hours. So is that
or
a
if
fair...
you let them come help you, which my 3-year-old, that is her favorite activity. She'll come and open the rat bins and go, Mommy, rat poop, we need to clean it. And I'm like, no, it's not rat cleaning day. She'll ask every day. But then it takes me 3 hours to do an hour and a half job.
Yeah. I mean, Alex likes to help. Help is a hard air quote there, too, sometimes. Yes. It's the same question with the snakes, but obviously the snake is the main business form here. How much time do you dedicate to the various tasks in your life? That's all I'm putting out there. And it may not be quite as linear as you think, where you're like, oh, I need to quadruple my rodent supply because it's what I need. But then you don't have quadruple extra time. That you just don't. Or you do, and you figure it out. Or maybe you do once she's in kindergarten, and you are a big dog breeder or something anyway at that point. Here's what I think about quadrupling the supply of rats and hiring a dedicated person to come in 20 hours a week and doing no cleaning, just sales and managing, buying supplies. That's the other thing. Like I spend a lot of time going to Trash Supply. Or they're out of doggy bag, and I drive to Olympia to go to that Trash Supply.
I've talked to my stepdad. They own 2 acres. They live out in the boonies, and he's retired, and he likes to stay busy. So he Ubers sometimes. He likes to get like odds and ends. Like last summer, he helped somebody put their roof on. Like he likes to stay busy. So even though he's retired, he's still very active. And so I was like, you have the perfect setup for me to put a rat shack on your property and for me to pay you
Right. You
to
could
run
pay him
rodents.
like a certain head. The problem is like it's not that fun of a job, and it sort of grinds on you after a while. Then you've cleaned
Yeah.
20 hours of poop. And I end up wearing a mask a lot because people become allergic to rodent saliva eventually. Pretty normal for that to happen. Wearing a mask, trying not to breathe in a bunch of particulates, and try not to get allergic to rodents. Imagine that. Like if you became allergic to
You were
rodents.
allergic to rodents.
And then you still had to
you're a
feed, so you
snake
stop
feeder.
breeding, but then you have to suit up every time you go to feed to not get
That would not
contaminated
work.
with rodent saliva particles or whatever. So it's something I think about a lot. The long-term sustainability of it is to hire someone else. And then you have like hiring problems, which is another problem. But the one thing I tried to do earlier this year, this is like a funny story to end on, is I tried to find like a unicorn buyer. It did not go well. I put an ad on Craigslist. I'm like, I need somebody local, somebody who can pick up from my house, no questions asked, and will buy whatever I sell them, no matter what they are, of what size, mini or none, at like a discounted rate per head, like $2 or something. But you could get larges, you could get mediums, you could get jumbos, you could get pups. But it would be cheaper. On average, you're going to get smalls and mediums. Because that's what I would know I didn't need anymore. And then I would just stop doing the processing of frozen altogether and stop frozen sales altogether. Because if I knew I could get rid of all the extras, I wouldn't have to like manage them, like take the time to CO2 them and then sort them and weigh them and package them. So I looked for this person on Craigslist.
It's unicorn.
Because some people, like Brian Carter from BC Balls, he found this person in Tennessee, and I'm like, oh, he's a genius. Because he didn't want to deal with managing sales of his extras. So you either gas them and send them to a pet store, or you gas them and send them to like your one friend. So I was like considering getting out of retail sales altogether because of how much time it takes. You know, that $300, it was really worth it. And it's not the people who come once a week and get like 20 of the same order every week. That's very predictable. I can work around that. It's the people who show up. It's a Wednesday. Can I have 40 smalls? I don't know.
It's the Janas. Hey, I need 25 today.
But you'll
You
take
got
frozen,
that?
so it's like made up for it. It's fine. So people
It's
would
fine 'cause
message
we're
me,
friends.
and they're like, all right, I'm ready to be your unicorn. And I'm like, okay, let me check your horn and see if it's real. Let's check. Invariably, they lived in a different state, and they wanted me to freeze them and ship them. And I'm like, did you not read any of the fucking ad whatsoever? Or they had 2 snakes. I'm like, I need someone who has 500 snakes, and they're mostly large snakes, right? So
Right.
that if something accidentally became a large or a too big medium, I could just be like, fuck, there's a bunch of live larges and mediums. Instead of processing them, I'll just call up my unicorn if you can get them at a discount. Instead of me like sorting and storing. There's a lot of like energy loss doing that. Probably another 5 hours a week, if not
Have
more.
you talked?
I don't want this unicorn anymore, because that probably was like a folly anyway. To like try to find one person with like a magical collection that's not just big snakes, but like a large number of big snakes.
You are your own unicorn. You just haven't realized it yet.
Maybe.
You need
might-
to be your own unicorn.
Right. Like most of my large production that's oversized goes to my boas anyway. It's fine. I don't buy in large sizes. What I wanted to do was cut out the labor of managing the frozen, and I could not achieve that. And so I had to buy another freezer, and I still spend some hours a week culling and sorting frozen rats.
And you like
You're looking
that
at me like it's
least
crazy.
amount.
No, I don't like cleaning. Obviously, just sorting dead rats is not that bad.
Okay.
There are times in
like-
my day where I'm like, I can't do a water change on the snakes right now because I don't have time. I have to go feed rats. So wouldn't I rather do a water change on the snakes than
Yes.
kill a bunch of rats and sort them out before they get almost even more large?
And again, this is why I like ASFs.
All right. But I
Right.
think people are not aware of the time spent as you go up. And it's not quite 1 + 1 = 2. It's almost 1 + 1 = 4 because like the logistics get weirder and weirder as it gets bigger. Because I don't have a super
Right.
convenient way to freeze. Like I don't have a blast chiller. So I have to fold them over into like an attractive position and then try to freeze them on like cardboard boxes flat so they don't sit unfrozen. It's like, that's something stupid. Like, why do I have to fold rats over? I do. because they
How come you don't just shove them in the bag and set them on a cookie tray?
because if their tails are frozen erect, like all the way out, they won't fit. A medium doesn't fit well within a bag. A Whedon does, but a medium does not. You need to.
I know, I mean like freshly culled rat that's still warm.
Right. You need to
into
fold it
a
up so that
bag.
it freezes. Okay, when you do that, it becomes like rat-shaped Jenga, and they're much harder to tease apart. Like if I am running out of time and I don't feel like freezing them on a tray, rat Jenga can happen, but two things happen. That thing is still not for all the way frozen 2 days later. Is that safe? I'm not sure. Two, the rat Jengas get sort of tangled, and they're not easy to pick out individual ones. So I try my hardest to freeze folded and separated on like
Way
a cardboard
too
tray.
lazy for that, man.
I know,
Shove
but
them
I
all
can't.
into rat Jenga, set them on a tray so they dry flat so you can stack them. Because
Right.
I just take a whole bag and dump the whole bag onto a tray and thaw the whole bag. 'Cause I
When
have
your
so
rats
many
get bigger
freaking
than like an ASF,
eggs.
you can't do that anymore. Like they don't fit at a good rate. Like if you jingled them in when they were still warm,
Right?
the tails will be stuck like long still, even though they're jinged. And most people, when they come to buy it, they're not buying the entire bag. If it's your personal use bag, they're buying 10. So I have to go back through and sort out 10 from this pre-sorted thing of mediums. Make sure they're like less than a certain size of medium. Like I go through and manually reweigh them all. And I remember my master's degree was looking at me that whole time. That whole time. It's judging me
Whole time.
from the office, looking at me in
You
the rat
know,
room.
me and my not master's degree is judging you
That whole
and
time.
how many times you're touching
Also,
each of these rats.
I have to de-poop the rats. So if it's a rat that died with the poop halfway out of its butthole, I gotta manually palpate that out. This is the customer service that I provide. Wow.
You know the Cold-Blooded Cafe is not providing the deep pooping service, right?
I do de-poop large rodents' buttholes so that when the animal goes into the water or however you're defrosting it, you just don't have a bunch of poop floating in the water too or on your
I
table.
don't defrost that way. Not relevant to the podcast. Why do you touch them 12 times? Why? I don't understand why you don't do rat bag Jenga, freeze them, and that's your 10 pack. Like, why would you kill them, toss them
Like,
in a
why would
bag?
I force
This is a bag
someone
of
to buy
mediums.
them in
This
a,
is-
I guess, okay. Well, most people don't buy that. I could do that. People are trained to do that because that's what the fuck is that place called? Glacier Rodents does. You have to buy a bag of 10, and that's the only way they come. But part of why you would want to buy from me is I can give you 10 mediums, 10 smalls, 20 rat pups, and 10 whatevers. So, like, why the hell would they want to drive all the way down here in the woods if they couldn't, like, a la carte their order? If I wanted to save time, or if I had an employee, we would have to do by bag. But most people do not want 40 large mice for their one corn snake.
Let's conclude. So, you said maybe, but final answer. Do you think it's economical to run your own rats, irrespective of the demoralizing fact that you are breeding rats with a master's degree?
In terms of raw numbers, yes. You can produce a rat for less than it costs to buy. Are you going to, do you think you will still run your dream amount of ASFs? Or do you think you're going to run rats and ASFs? Or
For now, I will probably at least double or triple my production of ASFs. There may be a point of demoralization, and I may switch to rats or just be making enough sales of snakes to buy the frozen thawed. I'm hoping that when everybody goes off food, all my breeders, that I will be able to produce enough to put in the freezer. So,
but
like,
not to sell?
not to sell, no, for my own personal use. They do really well at the shows and they sell for ridiculous amounts of money. And so if I ever was making enough rodents, that would be worthwhile as well. I am going to continue forward with the ASFs. I'm not saying that that's an infallible plan and that I won't change directions. I think part of this hobby is being flexible and realizing you're going to change directions on things. So for now, the plan is to build more racks for ASFs, get everything moved into the snake shack, decide if I have room to run ASFs in there or if I am going to put them in the garage, and then just see where we're at production wise. I do agree with you that breeding, building females, I feed them medium rats, so you're not going to get that with an ASF. So I may continue to buy frozen thawed mediums or maybe run a rack of regulars and freeze them at mediums so I have my own stock of mediums, or continue to bum them off of you while you demoralize yourself over these rats.
Well, I palpate their buttholes
That's
for poop.
Right. I'm sorry that I've not appreciated that bonus from buying with you.
It doesn't matter. Jana King, where can people find you these days? The corner?
Probably in the corner.
The brothel?
With endless sick children. So no fun happening here. I am Jana King, ASM Royal Tails, and you can find me on Instagram. And Jessica Hare, where can they find you?
I don't know. Nobody messaged me last week about my burning questions because only 7 people listened. So this week, you can't find me on Instagram at Hare Hall Farm. Good night.
Good night.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.